Hello, my little darlings, and a warm welcome from Falkirk Football Stadium in one of their posh boxes. I know, it's actually a shed on the touchline, but there we are. Welcome to the News and Views with the award-winning EV Cafe. 30 minutes of what's happening in sustainable transport with expert analysis from a couple of the EV Cafe crew this morning, brought to you this week in partnership with the AA. They're always ahead. We've got the quite wonderful Paul Kirby and the floridacious Sam Clark. Sam, loving that shirt, darling.
I'm loving that word. I've never even heard it before. Floridacious.
No, I've made it up. Any road up. Let's grab a cuppa and plug into what's happening in zero-emission transport this week. And coming up, the King has outlined his government's transport and energy plans whilst wearing over £1 billion worth of jewels. Cool. A fifth of fleets have no plan to cut emissions. We talk about that at length. A survey highlights how EV drivers face payment issues. That's a pay-through thing. Hang on for that one. EDF and Octopus Energy have launched the Electrify Britain campaign, and a new regional transport strategy has been launched. But as I say, I'm at Falkirk Stadium and I'm doing my mental health first aider training, kindly paid for by Sarah Sloman and the EV Cafe, which will enable me to join Paul in championing really good mental health, and not only championing it like Sam does, but to be able to provide that first line of support to those who are having a tough time. People in our industry are going through some difficult days, and it's the leading cause of death in men under 50 that you go through mental health trauma and ultimately commit suicide. Suicide is the leading cause of death. It's quite remarkable, and it's something we can do something about. So thank you to the EV Cafe and Sarah, who funded me to do this. What do you do in your workplace? Do you have any policies, Sam, around mental health in your workplace?
Oh God, yes, we will do, but I can't confess to know much about it though. But yeah, of course, that's, you highlighted some really stark statistics there, and it's something we've all got to take very, very seriously, right? Especially in a high pressure environment that we all operate within now.
Yeah, and we're lucky enough, Paul, to be trusted often with people's challenges, and they're kind enough to come to us and unburden. This sort of training, this sort of awareness is really important in the workplace, isn't it?
It is, and there are very much two sides to it. There's the people that sadly go on to take their own life, but there's also the people that are then left immensely scarred by the challenges that brings. And I very recently, an early conversation with somebody I know very, very well, I've worked with for a number of years, shared their story with me, and I was gobsmacked because their life on the outside looked perfect, and it had been decimated by suicide and mental health just in the last year or so. And these are the kinds of things that we need to be ready for, and we should make the door open on. So, that's it. The doors are open. Come and talk to us. And we want to help and make a difference for no other reason than you.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to say is to provide some gender balance, that menopause is one of the major issues that we've talked about on this course. And it's a very misunderstood and not very well supported part of our world. The menopause is causing huge, untold difficulty for women in the workplace and partners and family of people going through that. It is a massive challenge. Please talk about it. Have a conversation with people that you work with. It's not always easy, but it is very important because it makes a massive difference to the quality of people's lives. Shall we move on to the news?
Yeah,
we will.
Let's do that thing. Right, transport and energy bills took centre stage in the King's speech as the new Labour administration looks to build on its manifesto commitments to the sectors. A Great British Energy Bill will set up a publicly owned clean power company, which will have its headquarters in Scotland, of course, and aims to accelerate renewable energy, including offshore wind. The bill enables it to develop, own and operate assets which will have a value of 8.3 billion in new cash over the course of the Parliament for planning and infrastructure, which are critical to the acceleration of net zero through electric vehicle charging hubs and associated infrastructure, as well as low carbon building. A planning and infrastructure bill will be put before Parliament. This will include measures such as changing compulsory purchase compensation rules to ensure compensation is fair and not excessive, and also improve local planning decisions, the making of those decisions, and the powers given to local authorities to ensure that people are supported in making that transition. Sam, you're in the world of delivering massive energy projects. Planning laws, do they get in your way?
Oh God, yeah. Yes. I think everything gets on our way, John, to be honest, because the whole principle of trying to install high-powered charging infrastructure is complex, and whether it be grids, whether it be energy, renewable energy, planning, it's all part and parcel of the journey, and it's always difficult. Even the great crested newts are a challenge because of all the surveys that are required at a very specific time of year. So a little thing like that can put projects back by months. So for good reason. So there's a lot of challenges there in regards to trying to get these things forward. So yeah, the King's Speech. A King's Speech for me, it's a government speech, isn't it? Really, I suppose through his lens. And I think this is the first time we've been together on the news since we've had a new government. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it is. So fingers crossed now that we've got all of the chatting out of the way. That this new government will deliver on some of their promises and push on through with some of these initiatives. I hope they do.
Yes, absolutely. Because the renewable energy part of that is, of course, for me, the really important part. And Paul, we were lucky enough to have AW Energy on the webinar this week, and John Fairley. Creating renewable energy, storing it locally and using it locally is an absolutely critical part of the way in which you make this transition to net zero.
It is, and it's a super exciting part, and it's one of the things that, of course, this King's Speech began to address a little bit in terms of the planning regulations to make life much, much easier for people like John and AW Energy to be able to put the spade in the ground and get things started in regard to some of these onshore projects, both solar, wind, all of those kinds of things. Solar's a bit easier, I think, but wind certainly has been a challenge to do onshore, and now we get the opportunity. For me, there was one element, and I hate to raise the worrying thing, but the one thing that they did make very, very clear before coming into government was the return of the 2030, and to avoid the sort of lack of clarity that the move to 2035 has brought, and it was missing. And it was a shame, and I'd like them to address it openly, to say why it's missing and what they intend to do. I see the policies and everything that they've done as very positive, but I was worried by that one missing element that was a key part of their pre-election campaign.
Well spotted, mate. It takes a sharp one to get by you, dear boy. Right, now then, before we go into something even more serious, let's have a quick shout out to some people. And according to my reckoning, Gary Comerford at 9:31 was the leader of the pack. He's joining us through YouTube, as is Leon Gomez. Morning. Daryl Sharp. Hello, dear, from Shropshire. Scott Eady. Morning. Amy Carter from DAF. Hello. Who else we got? We've got the wonderful Ron from Evie Bino. He's there. Paul O'Brien. Hello. Good morning. LinkedIn user. Did I miss Teresa?
You did?
Yeah. Well, don't see Teresa in my list, but okay. Morning, Teresa. Hello, darling. How are you? Lovely to speak to you yesterday. And thank you for trusting me with all of your chat. Now then, LinkedIn user, 10 o'clock. Who are you? How do you do that? How do you become anonymous? Russ Morgan, hello. Holly Baldwin. Now, she was fabulous on the EV rally. We've spoken a lot about that. Thank you, Holly, for all you do. Ashley Bannister, old Mr. Two Mugs, although he's technically only got one mug. Steve Williams, Marvin Samuels, morning, Marv. Martin Sweeney, Sarah Clark from Europcar, Harpreet Singh. Do you know what? There's more letters behind Harpreet's name than I care to mention. Gee whiz, you're a clever fella. Toby Hiles. Morning, Toby. Evie Peeps, all getting a shout out there. Mark Main, Martin Sweeney, Dan, 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 Sweeney. Too much? Okay. He was born in Falkirk. I didn't know that. Well, there you are. Tom Middleditch. Are you late? Yes, you are. 10:02. Peter Lever. Hello, hello, hello. Teresa Swift. Fantastic support network where needed. Hugs. Bless your little heart. Wayne Dunn. Alec P. Goodness gracious. Hello, darling. Now, where are we? Amy Carter says hello, JC. She doesn't say hello to any of you lot. Bob Dustin. Alan McGarrigle. Hello. Listen, thanks all for joining us. You matter. You make my mental health a great deal better. And I hope we can do a little bit to lift your spirits on this Friday when Microsoft don't seem to be able to put one foot in front of the other.
Yes.
In fact,
Gary from Evie Musing said King's Speech, not great film. I don't know whether he's listening properly.
See, but Gary would always talk about a film because he's a bit of a lovey.
But he did say also, do we know anybody that worked on it? So I'm wondering whether maybe he has a sneak part in the background somewhere as the serial extra that he is.
Goodness gracious. Right, let's go on to some serious stuff. 1 in 5 companies has no plan to cut their fleet emissions, according to new research by YouGov. Commissioned by fleet management company Go4, the YouGov survey included 1,000 senior HR decision makers and questioned plans for tackling the reduction of carbon emissions from fleets as part of an environmental, social and governance or ESG agenda. Across all surveyed businesses that use vehicles, YouGov found that 21% either had no plans to reduce their fleet carbon output at any point or were unsure. A further 11% expect to look at fleet decarbonisation in more than 12 months. So you're looking at a third have no plans to do anything right now. However, almost half of respondents were actively reducing their fleet carbon emissions. Well done. And a further 19% had plans to do so within the next year. Paul, whilst drinking your coffee, it's quite staggering to think that we are many years into the transition to electric and decarbonised transport. Yet there are businesses who are just sticking their fingers in their ears and saying, la, 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 la.
I see this as a very positive article. I see this as 80% and okay, maybe 69% of respondents say they are actively doing something. This means that, in that sort of cycle, we are dealing with just the laggards, the people that are the people that are sticking their heads in the ground. But, a big applause and a big shout out to all of that 80%, or 69, whichever stat you prefer, that are doing something. And I'm sure that is going to keep us all very busy. Because on the flip side of it all, you've only got sort of 22% or 17, 16% of registrations are electric and even less, sub 5% in vans. This is the correlation. We've got to get all of these 80% of people now getting into the vehicles and start doing something about it. So those 80%, come on, let's get moving. If you've got plans, let's help you and let's get you over the line. You 20%, nah, you're not even watching this. So move on and let the laggards, their businesses will die as a result of being that mindset. So I think, in that survival of the fittest, we'll soon see the cream rise to the top.
So we've had the positive view of that. Now, Sam.
Well, rather annoyingly, you went to Paul first because I had the same point. In as much as I read it as 4 in 5 companies do have a plan to cut their fleet emissions, and so there's only a small amount left, and that's good news. But my backup plan, because he stole my thunder, was to say, I wonder, and I think Ash Bannister made a point about querying the 20%. Bear in mind the economy is built on SMEs, right? So there could be a lot of companies in there that are a very small number of vehicles on fleet, and therefore they just haven't got around to it yet because it's not part of their major agenda because they've only got a small pot of vehicles. So there could be thousands of small companies out there with 1 or 2 vehicles that they just haven't got around to it yet, which is a very different lens, I think, to the big companies that have got huge agendas and are doing massive high scale economies of scale benefits. So I think news articles like this you can dice up in different ways and make it sound exactly how you want it to sound, and really the devil is in the detail in what's really going on behind the numbers.
What really interested me was that the survey asked HR professionals, and I struggled to understand how HR would be across the detail of what's going on in fleets, because they're not the natural home, I would have thought, for fleet activity. Am I wrong?
They can be because of company cars for a start. So
Yeah.
there's a large connection between HR and fleet in regards to salary sacrifice and company cars and things like that. So they do have certainly in our business, there's a strong link between the two.
And I
Okay.
think there are less and less fleet professionals out there, unfortunately, and it's got to sit somewhere, and logically it does sit for cars in HR because of the personnel kind of element, and then naturally by default the vans fall into that because they think, well, who's going to look after the vans? So it's a very accidental thing. Sam's found something amusing.
It's Amy Carter from Daft saying, just popping into the car to get my sunglasses. Sam's shirt is burning my retinas. Thanks, Amy.
Oh, interestingly, you mentioned vans. Great to see a van take the hill climb record at Goodwood last week.
I missed that. I presume it was the Transit that did it.
Yes, the Ford Transit, which is custom made and absolutely magnificent, didn't beat the McMurtry's record, but was the fastest up the hill. A van!
I know.
It's not really a van,
it's
though,
a
is it?
2,000
Yeah,
brake horse. Sorry, Sam. What was that?
Sorry, Paul. I said it's not really a van, is it? You could barely get a pork pie in the back.
No, yeah, I'm not sure the payload and practicality would go down very well, but it did do it, and it was it's an F1 car shaped as a van, isn't it? I mean, it's quite outstanding, and well done to Ford for doing that, because I mean, 2,000 brake horsepower. It was quite incredible. I must have missed that. I must publicise it. I don't know why it's not on LinkedIn. Ha! Terrible.
Indeed. Right. Let's move on. EV drivers face issues in booking and paying for charges, according to a new survey by EV payment specialist and sponsor of the EV Cafe, Paythrough, conducted in partnership with us. The survey of 200 EV drivers found that people still use multiple payment methods, and only 13% have a single payment option that they use 100% of the time. The majority of drivers have 3 or more regular options that they switch between, such as contactless and different apps. It also found that there were issues with payments, with 87% of respondents saying that they had to download a new app at the charging point at least once in order to pay. 80% have faced app payment problems due to mobile connectivity issues. 56% have had their card rejected. Furthermore, 45% of drivers said they had to phone up to make a payment, and 61% have left the charge point because of an unacceptable payment option list. Paul, does that affect you? Do you get that? You get a bit frustrated, or have you got all of the apps, all of the cards, and contactless as well?
Before we come to Sam, because I know Sam's really excited to get involved on this one.
Me, actually.
I was lucky enough to contribute. I was lucky enough to contribute to this article, with the lens of vans in consideration. I think productivity is super important, and anything that delays the person from arriving at the charge point, getting charged, and going is a problem in my view, and also the view of many a fleet user. So the fact that you still have to arrive at a charge point and it doesn't, it's either not working from a contactless point of view and you've got to download an app or do these kinds of things, can be very frustrating. So any action to highlight the importance of seamless paying for your fuel is a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, Sarah has a comment via you, Sam.
Yeah, you could have done it, John, by all means. But yeah, I had 2 things to say. One is obviously Sarah's, because this is pertinent to her because it's Paythrough. And she said, "Thank you for sharing this important work from Paythrough and our partners. Last year, we released a white paper like this one, which attracted broadsheet press and policymaker attention. This is all part of my calling it out plan. We can only fix things once we know what is wrong. Our financial services industry is working on all manner of technological advances, which I hope makes everyone's life more simple."
Oh, thanks, mate. We've got some really interesting news from Peter Lever. Now, whether this is right or not, Peter, I can't comment. Can't stress that this is just a rumour, but there's an arrival van coming to beat the Ford record next year.
Well, so I'm interested because Peter does know a little bit about Arrival. Arrival had sort of dead and died in America formally. So I'm really curious, and I may well pick up the phone to him afterwards to find out what is he saying, because the arrival van that I've driven and that I've seen I think it is still in the UK and still running around. Wouldn't beat a bowl of eggs, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I've ridden the same one, and I wonder though, Paul, if you took the back off it and put it back into skateboard form, and then just put something smaller on the rear, it would suddenly become a very slippery Formula One car shape. So who knows?
There is another vehicle that maybe isn't the arrival vehicle that might be able to do that. I'm aware of that, but I'm interested. You piqued my interest.
John, can I just go back to the news article about facing issues in booking and payment of EV chargers? I just want to point one thing out. May I do that? Again, be careful what you wish for in terms of statistics. GridServe is the busiest network in the country, one of the busiest ones in the world, and our statistics are nothing like that. So, it's a much, much, much more seamless experience that we experience from feedback of our customers. So it is, not all charge point operators are created equal. So we've really got to, let's not tarnish everybody with the same brush.
Absolutely, Sam, and I wouldn't disagree with you. I used on the EV Rally a couple of charge point providers, GridServe being one of them, seamless operation. The other one was particularly brilliant. There's some really, really leading companies out there. There are also one or two laggards, and Amy Carter says the most frustrating part of EV ownership, she just wants to tap in and out like the tube, the contactless phone card. Couldn't agree more. Paul?
Super quick one. I think the point is we've got many, many operators, unlike petrol and diesel these days, which is down to sort of 5 or 6, and it's that migration that we've got to sort of wait for some of the consolidation that is got to be inevitable, and that will make life a little bit easier as time goes by. But in these early days, everybody's land grabbing, everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie. So that they can grow and be sold or do whatever, and it's this process that we've got to go through, and it is part of the natural scheme of things, I think.
The only counter to that, Paul, is this article isn't about the number of charge point operators; it's about the methodology by which you charge. So everyone's got the same mechanisms: RFID, roaming,
but I guess
just our apps. But the thing is that's pretty the four fundamentals, and they're not all doing it the same way, and exactly. Some people make it incredibly complicated. It's
exactly trying to
sort of four ways in which you access a charger, really.
But it's that trying to own the process, isn't it, that is causing the problem. We want to be different so that ours is best, and creating proprietary processes that are unique and all that sort of stuff, when actually it's something that we should just focus on, plug and play, tap and go, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Think back to cash machines years ago. You only were able to use the cash machine for the bank with which you banked. And now you can just go anywhere, hole in the wall, doesn't matter who the provider is, you can get your money out. And I think it's going to be the same sort of thing. Ultimately, what we're all trying to do is to encourage people to use electric vehicles and the charging networks that are available at home and publicly, and making it as simple as possible for people to make that transition.
Yeah, Teresa Swift's got a lovely comment on there. Thinking on lamppost chargers. I've never experienced one. Yeah, that's not surprising. Are they also just tap and pay? I don't believe so. I think that level of technology is too complicated and expensive to go into a simple charger. Not that you get anywhere near the lamppost anyway, because there'll be a petrol engine car in the way. But yeah, so no, I think that's more QR code and app based, Teresa, than it ever is contactless.
That's Sam riding his hobby horse. Sorry. Right, let's move on. EDF and Octopus Energy have joined forces to launch Electrify Britain, a campaign organisation dedicated to significantly reducing energy bills, reducing climate emissions, and driving economic growth through replacing gas, diesel, and petrol with widespread electrification. Electrifying Britain's home heating, transport and local communities presents a golden opportunity to cut energy bills. Electrified homes that use heat pumps can save hundreds of pounds compared to gas boilers, and EVs are already thousands of pounds cheaper to run annually compared to petrol vehicles. Electrified Britain's key priorities are to make electricity pricing fair, so say all of us. Electrify home heat. It's going to be happening. Electrify transport. Love you, hug you and squeeze you. And electrify whole communities. Do we see that happening, Paul, in the real world? Are communities saying, yeah, we're done with this fossil fuel? Or is this just aspirational and we need to encourage, and this is the way that we will achieve that wider understanding of the opportunities here?
I don't know that the great British public is like fully aware of all of the challenges, but also all of the benefits that we're facing. The challenges with fossil fuel and climate and air quality, and the benefits of going to an electric solution and stuff like that. I've recently had conversations around heat pumps with a number of people, and they're like, "Oh no, not going to do that. No, I'm going to stick with my gas boiler." Blah blah blah. And you're like, oh, come on, guys. I mean, there's big grants, huge grants for the installation thereof. They are very, very efficient. And interestingly, so the person I was talking to was selling their home and their boiler needed updating. They demanded that they absolutely had to have a gas boiler, got the gas boiler fitted, then bought a brand new flat with, you guessed it, a heat pump. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you've just wasted like thousands on giving somebody else a gas boiler and then bought yourself a property with the thing that you didn't want. I'm like, oh gosh. But this is it. We need education, we need understanding and the fairness, and AW Energy are creating sort of direct link for wind turbines and communities. That's their vision. And so there's a lot of great stuff going on here, and it's great to see Octopus and EDF coming together to make it happen.
Absolutely. Right. We're going to move on, Sam. I'll come to you in a minute. Just for a comment on this story. A regional transport strategy has been shared by Peninsula Transport, the sub-national transport body for Cornwall, Devon, Plymouth, Somerset and Torbay, setting out a number of objectives, including the introduction of affordable zero-emission transport through a reliable electric vehicle charging network. What a good idea. And alternative fuel choices for road freight and buses. The strategy aims to give people in the southwest a more resilient, reliable and accessible transport system, boosting economic growth while supporting more sustainable ways to travel. Now, Sam, we were down there just recently on our way to Exeter and the marvellous grid serve chargers down there. The West Country does have a bit of a paucity of available outlets for charging. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. Although I'm going to defer to Sarah again because she loves this, because she said, I love this. In fact, she said, I absolutely love this as a second sentence. This is the fastest way that the population who I believe get ignored, that critical 15, 20-year-olds group grow up hating public transportation and drive as soon as they can, especially rurally. Giving them great options at a young age might also boost the local economy, saving them wanting to get a car and drive out of the region to earn more money, which is a good point, I think. Having said all of that, my yin to her yang is that this is great and it's a great news article, but isn't it just the norm? Shouldn't this just be the norm everywhere? They highlight easier journeys going electric and a connected peninsula as the sort of three key pillars. Isn't that just standard? How can that not just be standard everywhere? It's not groundbreaking, is it? We just got to make sure that we deliver the right transport for everybody, especially in more rural areas, and just get it done. Like it's being done in Braintree in Essex. There's loads and loads of examples where this has already been implemented for many, many years. So they kind of got to get a move on.
I think the additional complexity here is the rurality of the locations that they're covering and also the just transition. So making sure that nobody is left behind, that it's not just seen as a sport for those who've got disposable income. This is about shifting communities, shifting huge geographical areas and ensuring that they are equally benefited by the opportunities that electrification provides.
And it is great they're looking at it. It is great they're looking at it, right?
Absolutely.
Because there are many communities around the rest of the country in a similar layout that have already done this years previous.
Scotland.
I think the point is here that if we assume that everybody is on the sort of treadmill of doing all of this, and we think that it should be just the norm, but it isn't. The point is, we need to keep saying it. We need to keep raising the article. This is why we exist, to accelerate the transition to zero-emission transport. And so if we're not saying it, if we go, oh, it should be happening, then we're missing the point. It's our job to make sure everybody hears it. Everybody thinks, oh, why? So, I mean, a good example is Leighton Buzzard in Bedfordshire. They were going to be taking some electric buses and a certain facility was created to look after those electric buses, and they changed their minds. And it's a 10-year decision. It's not just so we need to be supporting all of those decisions all of the time and saying it to the wider audience, not just the Church of Electrification.
Absolutely right. 3 comments from our followers. Phil Davis, did someone say Hugh Grant? I think Gary Comerford may know him and may be able to get an autograph. Peter Lever, Octopus gives you a free coffee from Greg's every week. Loving an octopus. And Mark Elliott, I know a company that have contactless on lamppost chargers. Interesting, Mark. Could do with some details so that we can just get Sam a bit quieter than he is normally about these things. If you've got, Paul, go on, quick, 10:30.
I just wanted to quickly say it's Chris Hazel at Felton that has bought the arrival vans. I think there's 2, maybe 1 or 2. And because they were all selling everything off, and he's going to maybe add a couple of Tesla motors to it, and then tackle the hill. But they've got the pedigree. They've definitely got the pedigree, so it could be really interesting. Maybe a story for another day.
I think so, right? If you've got any other clean transport, PR, or news stories you'd like us to cover, you can send them to us at hello@evcafe.org. Until next Friday, it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from them. This has been an EV Cafe production brought to you this week in partnership with VAA. Always ahead. Other sustainability news services are available, but this is just funner! The EV Cafe is truly blessed to be partnered with the AA Webfleet Europe CarPay through Iveco, Zaptec, Drax, Sperry, Stuart Science, Hydrock, Allstar, Schneider Electric, and Dynamon. With the EV Cafe, supporting the transition to zero-emission transport and great mental health. Enjoy the rest of your day, your weekend, wherever it takes you. Till next Friday. Bye.
Bye.
Right.
Great job from Peter Lever.